The third thing we work on is aspiration, and it doesn't sound like a very important thing, and I'll explain why we work on this at the end of this little short segment. But I'm sure we've all been in classes and we've asked our students to say something like Peter Pan with two aspirated P's at the beginning of Peter and the beginning of Pan, and we've got them to hold up a piece of paper, and for the Peter and the Pan, the paper blows out, or we get them to blow out the paper, and we say, look, in English, P's are aspirated. When you make a P in your language, there's no movement of the paper, but for English, you have to be able to blow the P outwards. And here we have my niece saying Peter Pan, and we can see that she's got a nice puff of air, which is blowing the air, which is blowing the piece of paper outwards. Now, this is great, but it only goes half the way in terms of getting our students to do something different. Because now they know there's something different about P in English, but they don't know what to do in order to create it. You know, they're not going to walk out of this class suddenly aspirating all their P's. They're going to walk out of the class and make P's in the way they always have done previously up till now. So what we need to do is to give them the explicit instructions on how to do this. Now, one part of the story is, of course, that they're going to be making stresses down here. So there's going to be more air coming up in their system to create the aspirated P. But another part of the story is about the fact that different languages use their lips in different ways. Now, French and Japanese, and a number of other, French in particular, uses its lips in a very active way. In English, and Portuguese, it's true of Portuguese as well. In English, we tend to have very relaxed lips compared to other languages. Dutch is noted for its pursed lips. English is noted for its very relaxed lips. Now, a P sound is a plosive. Technically, in phonetics, it's called a plosive. And the root of that word plosive comes from the same root, or the word explosion comes from the same root as plosive. A P is an explosion. You have pressurized air in your mouth, and then you open your lips, or your lips open, and the sound of that explosion is that noise is what we call a P in different languages. But there's two ways in which the air, the pressure, the buildup of pressure in the mouth can be released. One is to make an active gesture. So if you have pressure in your mouth and you actively drop your jaw in order to make your lips part, then you'll produce an explosion of a certain type. And that's what happens in French and Japanese and in fact, most of the languages of the world. The lips are actively opened to create a P. But in English, something different happens. We have very relaxed lips, and the air pressure, we allow the air pressure just to blow our lips apart. So the jaw doesn't move. When you make an English P, you don't have to drop your jaw in order to move the lips apart. The jaw can stay in the same place, and the lips can just be blown apart. So if I stand side on to you, and I go, it's the pressure of the air which is blowing my lips apart. And if you do that for P in English, aspiration comes naturally. All the other aspects of English Ps come naturally. So we're going to do a little bit of practice. Can you just practice making two sorts of openings for explosions? Build up a bit of pressure in your mouth, and then release the pressure by opening your lips sharply, and you'll make a sound like a French P, but. And then release the pressure just by letting the pressure blow very relaxed lips apart. And you'll feel your lips should actually move. Okay, and now try and do the same thing. These are the instructions: relaxed lips, strong abdominal push of air. So we're going to be, in the same way as you had that snorting, that action which you did the pushing there, and just try saying a few of these words using this new way of hyperarticulating an aspirated P. Have a go at that. These are the words you've got here. And again, I think you'll find that although it feels odd doing it, the actual word comes out sounding completely naturally English. This is the way that you speak English, though we're hyperarticulating now, but it's the right sound which is coming out. And this is the way that students who come from a language which isn't English can get to the correct way of producing an English aspirated P. Now, I should say that, of course, they're going to need more practice. Here we've got two-syllable words. We've got pot and potter. And for this, of course, there's just going to be a single pulse, because there's only one stressed syllable in the word potter. Only the first syllable is stressed. The whole word is going to have to be produced on the same stress pulse. So it'll be one push with the abdominals for this, and a single push for this word. So students have to be able to get into this idea of the right number of stresses, meaning the right number of abdominal pushes. And one other thing, so we would practice on this stuff here. One other thing which it's worth saying is that, of course, English has aspirated Ps. It also has Ps which are unaspirated. And one way, if you take a sort of a very technical approach to English, you might construct a whole set of rules about when is a P aspirated, when is it not aspirated. it's not relevant at all. The important thing is that when you make a stress pulse, the air is naturally going to create aspiration in English. And because these P's appear either at the end of a stress pulse or at the beginning of an unstressed syllable, there won't be any rising column of air to drive the aspiration. So another good thing about taking an articulatory approach is that a lot of the rules of English pronunciation can just be thrown out of the window. These things happen naturally. They don't happen because English speakers are obeying a whole set of rules which they learnt as children or guessed as children. Okay, so this would be an approach to teaching aspirated P. One very good question is, surely aspirated P is such an unimportant part. Given that we've got the whole of English pronunciation, why are we teaching it so early on in the course? And the reason is because in the same way as we were getting people to be present to the inside of their mouths, this allows people to be successful with one aspect of English where they can very actively be aware of their mouths, change the setting of their lips, and therefore be successful at producing a sound which is very obvious to them differently, is very obviously different from the P in their own language. Now, they're going to have to do more of this work when they get on to producing new vowels. If they're coming from Spanish to English, and they've got to somehow carve out 8 or 9 new vowels which don't exist in Spanish, clearly that's going to involve experimentation, being present to their mouths, listening to the difference. And it's good to inspire people with the idea that, yes, I can do this. I can change the way my lips work, change my speech breathing, and, my goodness, where previously I would have said papa in French, now I can say papa in English. And it so obviously sounds different. I know that I'm an English speaker when I'm doing the right things with myself. This is the advantage of doing this here. Everybody can be successful at this exercise, so it's a great exercise to do early on. Rosa said it, and I've actually said it already. Success in life isn't a straight line, and success in pronunciation isn't a straight line either. We don't have enough time in a pronunciation class for students to master English pronunciation. So what we have to do with them is give them the tools, inspire them to go and do the work outside the class. And one of the problems with listen and repeat is it relies on a model, and the model isn't there when the student is traveling home on the bus. Whereas if we give our students the actions which create English sounds, and if they then discover in the class that these actions genuinely create something that is authentic, then those actions are things that they can carry away and that they can practice for themselves when they're outside the classroom. So a big advantage of taking an articulatory approach to pronunciation is students are enabled or empowered to do the work necessary to give themselves excellent pronunciation, which isn't always the case in listen and repeat.